Okay, been a while, guys. Welcome back to the Memory Core. This is a sort of semi-quarantine edition. We're actually outside, which is very nice. It's beautiful outside.
What you
Don't,
hear in the background is the ambient noise of my awesome air conditioner.
yeah. I don't know if you really call it summer yet, though, because I haven't seen too many people with doors off their Jeeps driving around barefoot. But
No, it's just me and my creeper work van.
yeah, but yeah. We here in Joliet, we survived a hurricane, not hurricane, tornado.
Yeah,
Oh man, it's been
an
a long weekend already.
EF0.
Um, yeah, Dan and I are actually recording in person. Even though the COVID stuff, our respective bubbles were sort of broken just because Dan and his wife adopted a cat from the clinic from me. So it was sort of like, okay, well, we already broke quarantine there, so just what's a little bit more?
The tornado helped us break quarantine too, because our streets were flooded. I was out swimming in it, trying to unclog all the storm drains so our neighbors wouldn't get hit. We're like pretty much done with everything. And there was like the one guy who was like, we're supposed to practice social distancing right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the thing is that there may be real consequences of that. I mean, I don't know how many cases of COVID there are in our zip code right now, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, push came to shove. There were a lot of trees that were down in the streets. Our whole neighborhood's a mess, and it's sort of a bummer because there's a lot of good trees that are now going to have to be replaced, and I don't know if the city of Joliet can afford to replace them, or who's going to drop the money to do it. A lot of these things are just going to get mulched, which is sort of a waste too. But it is what it is. It is what it is.
But anyway, cat.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
So yeah, we
do you want me to tell a story, or do you want to tell a story?
you were really happy about the name.
Yeah, yeah. So about 5 weeks ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, a cat was dropped off at the clinic, practically at death's door. Um, she was going to die, and the owner, of course, did not have the money to do anything for her. So I took her in, and I am a bit of a classics buff. So whenever I see Latin used incorrectly in BattleTech, it really fucking irritates me because it's like, come on, guys, just ask anybody. One of the moderators, or one of the administrators at the board, Rooster Boy, knows Latin very well, and it's like, you can just ask him. But it is what it is. It is what it is. So I named her Eurydice because Eurydice was the wife of Orpheus, who died on their wedding day, and Orpheus, the lyre player, was so distraught he went down to Hades and convinced him to let her go. And of course, it being Greek myth, it didn't work out so well, and he still lost his wife. And so that's why I was like, okay, am I even gonna be able to save this cat? So the name Eurydice fits. Eurydice also translates to wide-ranging justice, which is kind of a cool name. But anyway, the poor girl, needed her leg amputated because it was gangrene, and a very long fucking time of healing, and multiple surgeries. She's now owned by Dan and his wife.
It took all of your Facebook posts to basically guilt trip me into doing it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I felt so bad for that cat, but she's a very beautiful, like, petite little black cat.
Yeah. She's got a good personality. The funny thing is, and I was absolutely distraught. I thought, man, everything about work sucks right now. Human beings are pieces of shit. I hate everything. I hate everyone. And when I realized that she needed that leg amputated, I was like, oh man, can I even do this to her? Like, is she even gonna make it through surgery? But if I don't do it, is she gonna die anyway? And in the end, it definitely was the right call. And the pain of amputation of her hind leg was less than having this dead thing hanging off of you. but she ended up, I mean, even that night, she started really bouncing back. And it wasn't like simple there and done, but for the most part, she just improved and improved and improved. And this is a story about how BattleTech brings people together. Because Dan's wife is not a particularly big fan of the franchise, but through sheer annoyance and osmosis of information,
A lot from me.
she knows who Natasha Kerensky is, and she decided that Yuri had to be renamed and renamed her.
Natasha Perinsky.
So that's
And it fits her.
yeah. So that was good. That was good. That was like a real good feel good moment. So yeah. Happy story. Happy story for once.
So now she's just a little bit of scabbing on that leg. Her hair's growing back. She bosses our other cats around. She has a little bit of a Napoleon complex. But with just like how bossy she is, her personality, like constantly yelling at everybody, I think Natasha's a good name for her.
Yeah. Yeah. She's all of 5 pounds. She lost a quarter pound when I removed that leg. But yeah, she looks good. She's really pricked up. She looks phenomenal, really.
I'll put a picture in the video.
She's a good cat. She's a good cat.
It all came full circle to BattleTech.
Of course. So yeah, Dan and I have both still been working. Our brains are frazzled from the stress of everything, and then Memorial Day came around, and it's like, well, I mean, what do you even do? And like, I think we had planned a third part to our clan series on how Alexander Kerensky is the Benioff and Weiss. So Alexander Kerensky is to BattleTech what Benioff and Weiss was to Game of Thrones.
Oh no.
Which, by the way, the ending of Game of Thrones was bungled so badly that during this whole quarantine, nobody said, yeah, I'm rewatching all Game of Thrones.
You just can't.
Nobody was like, yeah, I got all this free time, I'm gonna watch Game of Thrones again. Nobody wanted to because it was that shitty.
Yeah.
Nobody.
That I didn't even really think of that. And my wife is such a huge Game of Thrones fan; she couldn't even go back to do it.
Yeah. I mean, how many people do you know who have, they just watch The Office over and over and over again, right?
Yeah. Oh my God!
Yeah. Nobody
that's
cared.
Terrible.
Even like when Friends left Netflix, how many people were up in arms over that? Because all they do, I mean, they probably even have the DVDs. They just want to watch Friends.
Well, I mean, Jess bought the subscription to HBO again. She actually she didn't even go back to watch anything from that season.
Yeah.
She was just going back to watching like the Red Wedding and all of the Purple Wedding with Joffrey.
Yeah.
Like the real cool moments like that. But man, I couldn't go back to watching that season with the way the battles were handled. And, that just.
So there is a point to that comparison. Or I should say, Alexander Kerensky was the Terran hegemony, what Benioff and Weiss was to Game of Thrones, and so you probably have to wait for that in the future for a longer breakdown of that, because I didn't have the energy to go through the.
Man, with like the lack of sleep I even had because our power was out for so long. Like I'm trying to recall because I know we had this conversation. Before all of this.
So I just didn't have time to prepare it. Just didn't have the time to prepare it. But then there were a couple things that came to mind that I see as sort of recurring topics, whether it's on the various Facebook groups or whether it's at the main BattleTech forum. And I think it really has to do with, you're new to the game, you picked up the beginner box set, you've got miniatures to paint, and maybe you're an experienced painter, maybe you're not, but you're asking, what do I play? how do I paint these? What unit or faction should I paint these as? What should I do? And I think my opinion on this might be different than yours, Dan. I mean, it's not. But I think my opinion will be both a weight off the shoulders of new players and also maybe letting some air out of the balloon. But that's probably a good thing. What do I mean?
What do you mean?
Yeah, because
exactly?
you're giving me a look, Dan.
Yeah,
So what I mean is this: is that I think players put a lot of stress on themselves over what do they paint their mechs as. Oh, what mech is used by this, or what mech is used by that faction.
Oh, okay.
And I think especially when you're playing in that Succession Wars era, it doesn't really matter because by the time you hit 3025, I mean most things have kind of worked its way around. Now, if you're like a hardcore player and you're playing 3025. The Draconis Combine's not going to have a Hatchet Man yet. House Merrick and House Lau are not going to have Hatchet Men yet. Wolfhounds, no. You're not going to find Annihilators outside the Wolf's Dragoons. But in general, like those mechs in the first BattleTech box set, whether it's the Battle Master or the Catapult, you can put them wherever you want. Even Commandos, whatever. Don't worry about it. The point is you want to have fun. And you look at the fiction, right? And they're going to say, when you think about Battle Masters, you know that Merrick and Steiner have factories. But when I associate the Battle Master with a house, I think Davian and I think Kurita. Probably because Takashi Kurita piloted a Battle Master and Hans Davian piloted a Battle Master. But in the fiction, in the 3025 TRO, it says actually the Capellan Confederation has a large amount of Battle Masters.
Yeah, I didn't really think of that. That's pretty strange. But the Battle Master is such an early design, though.
No, I know.
So they're kind of floating around
kind of
everywhere at that point.
Yeah.
Which kind of goes to your point.
Yeah. It's not that hard to reason that a dragon, a mech that's strongly associated with the Draconis Combine, would have made its way over to Free Worlds League space or Capellan space, either through a direct raid.
They all border each other in some way.
Yeah, they all border each other, or secondhand salvage,
Scavenger
via
tech.
Steiner or Davian. It's not hard to reason that, and so I think when people worry about what mechs go where, I don't think it really matters. The point is to have fun. Now, of course, if you do want to fit within the universe, so there's a chainsaw going in the background. I don't know if you guys can hear it. This is probably another guy working on a fallen tree.
Rip and tear.
Yeah. Until it is done. But if you're worried about, obviously you don't want to just take a Timberwolf and just throw it in anywhere. And you don't want to take like a Templar and put it in a Death Commandos unit.
I think I know where you're getting at. There's a fine line that honestly I think it just comes down to you don't want a Timberwolf in your Star League, your Star League army.
Yeah, I think people worry about it too much because I think the main point is to have fun. And I think the other thing is, and it is going to be a bit of a downer for a lot of you guys, that for the most part, BattleTech won, even to a lesser extent, a Time of War, obviously, but BattleTech is a game system that does better with Lance v Lance or Star v Star. You can do a company on company, but those are going to be long games. That's okay. I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's great, man. If you have a weekend, fucking go nuts. Get a case of beer, get a bunch of pretzels, and then spend your whole fucking weekend doing it, which sounds awesome.
It is a good time.
But I think the reality is that you're not going to want to paint your whole beginner's box set, 12 mechs the same unit, because you're never going to use them all that way. And the other thing is, Dan, maybe you probably will agree with me based on your experience, but there aren't that many BattleTech players.
Yeah, there really aren't.
You're not going to be playing. One, you're not going to be using, a company v company. You're not going to be using your miniatures that often right now to justify painting them all the same way. What's probably going to happen is you're going to have a friend. You're going to guilt them or sucker them into playing.
Yeah.
And you're going to want to be able to see what's what. And you know, if you paint all your mechs the same color or the same scheme, and you're dividing them up, you know, between you and a friend from that same box set, you know,
It's a little hard to track.
yeah. I mean, there's not really a point to it. You know, I think the other thing too is that you're gonna want. I mean, so even in the universe, you know, there's a lot of variety among units in terms of how they paint them. You know, I don't know if you remember this, Dan, but I know it's in the Clan Jade Falcon source book. I mean, they even say is that yeah, there are paint schemes for units, but in general, Clan warriors kind of do whatever the hell they want. They may have like really weird psychedelic paint schemes.
Something that was lost through time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm working on a clan unit that paints. Each individual mech is based off of a paint scheme from a railroad, either during the Streamliner era or sort of the modern era. So each one's going to be a bit different, which is kind of cool. So you'll see the Pennsylvania Railroad will have like, you know, the Tuscan red with the gold pinstripes, or you'll have the two-tone scheme or the different lines of different railroads. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, I mean, I kind of want to paint that Jaeger Mech 3 that I have, like Master Shake.
Yeah, yeah. So you can, I mean, anyways, you can do whatever you want as long as you're having fun with it. I think the other thing too is that by the time you paint your last mech, I mean, it's worth taking your time, because when you paint your first mech, it's gonna be awful, right? I mean, you haven't really been a painter unless you've stripped about half the things you've painted already. You know, because you're gonna get better. You're gonna get better. What you paint, your first time you paint versus what you paint 3 months later is going to be a significant difference, and then a year later, if you keep up with it.
Yeah, if you're really getting in the BattleTech, you're probably going to change your mind a few times on what you actually paint your guys. I know I've dipped mine in that Vada Simple Green a few times.
Yeah.
Depending on what I was going for, but most of it, like, I was real young when I got into painting, and yeah, it did not look good at all.
Yeah.
Even now, like, I did improve a lot, but my problem is I'm just way too lazy, way too freaking lazy. Especially with, I would trust you picking up any of my miniatures, but some of the other friends like I played with, I think I just kind of got PTSD from it.
No, just wrecking them.
Yeah, just wrecking them. I'm more like, I'm just gonna do it quick and dirty because Cheeto fingers and...
Yeah. Well, there's definitely, I mean, they say like there's sort of the display or competition quality or tabletop quality. And you can do a decent scheme with, you know, a base color wash, a dry brush, and some details.
That's basically what I do.
Yeah.
Real quick and dirty, done. There's a couple I tried on that I'm actually proud of, like the Huron Warrior I did. Because I actually did a little more. I actually took time to put different colors and like details on it that I wasn't used to.
Yeah.
Or I think like my strength is reposing. I think I've nailed that pretty good. I know I put pictures on the forums too, but I had an Axeman that I actually lost, the 2N that I lost the axe for.
Yeah, it's a fragile miniature that
I used an axe from a Night Star because I didn't really care for that mech when I got it. I forgot why I got it. It was for one of my friends, but I took the arm for that and put it on there and reposed it a little bit, but used toothpicks to put some spikes on it. Because, I mean, it already looked bad because it was beat up, so I was like, I might as well make it look like some really crazy Mad Max, like, pirate mech, and I had, like, an elemental with some limbs missing I put on there.
Yeah.
So it looks like you smashed it up.
So yeah. I mean, the point is, like Dan said, I mean, you sort of do what you want. I mean, if you want to paint a unit, you know, go for it. But if you're stressing out about it, don't worry about it.
I always tell new people getting into the game, and this goes a long way because I came in through Mech Warrior 2. Always go with the mercenary. You know, especially with the era that box set is put in. You know, everyone was using a mercenary unit. Like, you can do some kind of faction. Even then, like, if you were to pick somebody Like in the beginning, I like Hansen's Rough Riders, and that was because of MechWarrior 2, because of Deadeye Unther. You know, and even in there, like their paint colors have changed too. It used to be like a
Well, white and green, right? It was in the
No,
it was in the MechWarrior first edition. They had it was
yeah, like I think that might have been one of them, but it was like a desert camo kind of thing, and then they turned like they started with someone else and they went predominantly Steiner. I think they went from like Merrick to Steiner. The people are probably going to comment on this and tell me how wrong I am, because I haven't read about them in a while. But like their colors even changed too. But I think a good example of like a mercenary unit, if you wanted to start too, would be the Lone Wolves, because they're not a typical mercenary unit. They're more like a bunch of them hobbled together, and they kind of like contract like companies out and things like that. So you could really just do what you want with them.
Yeah.
Like if you really wanted to do something like, oh man, like I want to do something, I really want to like make something of my own, you know, but I know there's people out there that are like real rules lawyers and like fluff warriors. So I want to pick something that I could tie into the universe. You know, Lone Wolves is a good faction for it. You could do anything with it, honestly, as long as you're not, you know, giving that Timberwolf tier,
right.
Succession Wars.
So yeah, and then, you know, I think we all go through different phases too. I mean, a lot of us will pick a faction that we really glom onto.
Well, there's so much pop culture in BattleTech too.
Yeah.
You could paint all your mechs as like an American flag, and you could write something crazy for it.
Yeah, you're gonna change your mind. You're gonna change your mind. Like, you know, one day you're a hardcore Davi, and then like 3 years later you're like, man, I'm all in on Lao.
You can have an Atlas with a luchador mask.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? So yeah. I guess I would say is don't stress out about trying to make things match or do what you want. I think the main thing is having fun. I mean, you definitely want it to fit within the universe. I think, you know, BattleTech as an experience is best as sort of a sandbox, and you know, playing around the various limitations that you've got, I think are, you know, it's what makes the game interesting, and I think it's what makes it fun. And of course, this is more of an experienced mindset versus, you know, when you start out, a lot of us, you want to be power players. You know, the goal is to win. We don't play a lot of light mechs, so you take your heavy mechs and you customize them and you put PPCs on everything. And
over time, it really seems that I always see it, I don't know, a lot of times it's on the forums too, where people kind of like turn to the more fluff-oriented games, because they kind of realize if it wasn't for Mega Mech, your games would be way freaking long.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could squeeze out a company versus company battle in Mega Mech, like if you're all paying attention. Like I've played on games where it takes a person like almost 5 minutes to make a move because they get up from their desk and go do something.
Yeah.
But you could really churn out some games, and most of them on there, at least in my experience when I got into it, that might have been like 10 years ago. They were power players like that.
Yeah.
You know, like that's where that there's like a separate zip file, unofficial, and a lot of those designs are your typical power play designs with all your large pulse lasers and stuff.
Yeah. I think you know, when you play in the universe more with a sort of grounded, and this is something to be said, and when the guys who originally wrote the game, and having talked to them, like Forrest Brown and Butch Leaper, whom I referenced, I think back on our second episode, you know, they were not. I mean,
Tarkus Tank.
Yeah, Tarkus Tank. they were definitely not, you know, pro-war. Let's, you know, bomb everything. But they experienced and they knew about it, and you know, things like that's why like machine guns aren't everything, because you know, infantry are probably one of the easiest thing to throw in a fight. And you know, having access to machine guns and power and, you know, powerful weapons like that as anti-infantry deterrence is really key. But of course, if you're playing the game and just mech v mech, what's the first thing you rip out? Why take a -1 Phoenix Hawk when you take a dash 1D, which drops some machine guns and puts on more heat sinks or something.
Yeah. You know what? Going back on to like painting your mechs that you get in your new box set different colors. I kind of realize this is a problem with the new box set because the one before that, you got 24 miniatures? Like off the top of my head, it was something like that.
A lot. Yeah, I think it was 24.
You could, in that box set, actually split those up
Really
into different factions. Yeah. You can, and there was a list on the forums. I forgot who made it. You can actually split up, like, in different lances. You could paint each faction.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it was pretty clear though what. So for those of you who are sort of jumping on the train right now, I mean, it's pretty clear what the powers that be were intending with this new box set, and that was basically to redesign the Unseen, which had been featured in every box set up to 3rd edition, or up to and including 3rd edition, to bring those back. And then the Harmony Gold lawsuit happened, and so that's why you don't see a Marauder or a Rifleman or a Phoenix Hawk in those box sets.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I did replace him with the Commando and the Awesome and the Catapult, because the Catapult was supposed to be an archer. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is what it is. It is what it is. I imagine too that they probably would have, because the beginners box set has the Griffin and the Wolverine.
Yes.
The Griffin's also featured in, or is the Wolverine that's also in a game of Armored Combat?
If you get everything, you basically get 2 Wolverines.
Right. So my guess is that it probably would have been 10 and 2, and so you would have had everything from the start.
Mm-hmm.
What they should have done.
You get a company.
What they should have done. Well, I guess I should say that because shouldn't say this because there weren't jump jets on those mechs, but I know at least the 3rd edition box set, the game rules have teaching scenarios, and in one of them is a scenario that is a 1v1 Crusader versus Thunderbolt.
Which 3rd edition?
Yeah.
Yeah. It shows, man. I didn't even start on 3rd edition.
So that would have been cool.
They all had it though. They all had starter scenarios like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would have been cool to see that brought back, and they probably even mold it. I'm sure they were passing ideas back and forth, and decided, well, let's do the Wolverine and Griffin just because they're pretty evenly matched, and they both excel at different ranges.
I thought those 2 mechs were a pretty good choice. They can basically do the BattleTech dance.
Yeah.
I think the Griffin really shows you, what would they call it? The LRM sweet spot.
Yeah. And in heat as well, because the Griffin's a hot mech.
Yeah. And then the Wolverine basically shows you how, autocannons are okay.
Yeah.
But, against the Griffin, the Wolverine can actually close in for a fight.
Yeah.
And since they weigh the same, you get to see how, physical attacks. I mean, obviously they're all going to match per chassis.
Yeah. Well, their movement profile is the same. The armor placement's different. I think the Wolverine's actually short a point of armor on the head.
You could basically make a post in the forum saying who would win, Griffin or Wolverine, and you get a pretty big heated argument over it.
Yeah.
Because it's that close.
Yeah. Because it's one thing the Griffin can't do is it can't jump and fire its PPC recklessly, whereas the Wolverine can definitely jump and fire the autocannon without really much worry.
Yeah.
And 20 shots is more than enough in a 1v1 game. The autocannon, so don't even worry about firing the ammo. But yeah, that's sort of my take on the whole thing. Is that you're not going to be playing the game long enough, or often enough to really justify taking 10 or 12 battle mechs and painting them all the same, unless you've got a pretty extensive collection. I think your ideas on what faction you want to play is going to change. The amount of units you're going to be able to take to the board are going to be relatively small, so don't worry about it. No one's keeping track of this stuff. And even if you do decide, or you have a group of friends that you can play with, and you can do something that's more
fluff oriented.
Yeah, fluff oriented and with continuity and sort of succession of scenarios, no one's going to care if your mechs are all painted differently. No one's going to give you that much crap about it.
No.
Because it's not Warhammer.
Well, BattleTech was your beer and pretzels.
Yeah.
That's why we had all the standees.
Yeah.
Aren't they doing that with the Kickstarter?
Well, there's standees and...
I know there's standees in it, but I think with all of them that they're making, I think they were going to include standees with all of it.
They might be. I know it's in the new box set, right?
Oh, yeah, they're in the new box set.
Yeah.
They're actually in the... I think they're in the beginner box, too.
Yeah.
Standees. Because you get all of the quick start cards with them.
So, with Warhammer... And, I mean, I've got various opinions on Warhammer. But, that is an army combat game. It is... it's... I don't think it has to be WYSIWYG, but I get the impression that it generally is. But, obviously, your one Space Marine group is not going to be the other Space Marine group. But in general, like that is an army combat game. And so that's different than BattleTech is.
Yeah. With Alpha Strike coming to be, I can understand why we're getting these reprints and redesigns of these mechs. Because Alpha Strike is your... Not necessarily... I don't want to say it's Warhammer, because I think it's far superior. But Alpha Strike is more of your miniatures game.
Yeah.
So scale actually has to be a thing unless you play on a hex map. Which is why, like, if you... Which I'm going to make a recommendation, too, if you're getting into this. If you're just getting into BattleTech. If you want to go back and buy the box sets before... like the 25th anniversary box set, or was it 50? I don't remember, 25 or 50.
One of them, the miniatures they were pretty rough shape.
Yeah, they're rough shape, but they're awesome for the quick and dirty
paint jobs.
Paint jobs, and those are the ones you can use in your games to hand off to friends.
Yeah. Actually, and there are a couple of interesting points here because I've seen people complain about it on the various social media groups, and I think it's kind of unfair. I know people complain about the old miniatures. The metal miniatures are really solid. The poses may be relatively static, but in general they're pretty good. I mean, yes, for a while their Ironwind metals had issues with quality control, and mold lines could be a problem. Maybe they'd run molds a little bit too many times before they got new masters made.
Yeah.
But part of the issue with some of the Alpha Strike and then the 25th anniversary edition box set was that when you make a miniature, right, you have your master, which is about 10 to 15% larger than the production miniature, which sometimes gives you a reason why maybe parts don't fit as nicely as they do when after once they come out of when you buy the miniature. Because that's not just BattleTech, that's anything. It's not just Iron Wind. It's an issue with the process. There is shrinkage in the molds, and then when you modify, then not the master, but then a production miniature, then you get another 10% shrinkage, and so you'll see it whether it's the Alpha Strike miniatures, whether it was the 25th anniversary box set, or whether it was even the various modified box sets like the Mech Warrior 3 and Mech Commander Lance packs that you bought. You would see differences, and maybe they would add details, like for example maybe the Jaeger mech got extra panels in his cockpit, or the Bushwhacker got raised panels in the body, but you'll notice they are smaller, and that's because of just the way the production works out.
Yeah, which gets back to what I was saying about scale, which is why I think they're doing most of these reprints too. And it's mostly because Alpha Strike has actually been pushed a lot more recently. Even in the box set, you get Alpha Strike cards now.
Yeah.
So I understand the need for them to, if you're getting into it, if I could say anything, if I had to make a complaint about the metal miniatures, it is scale. And that's only because, well, when they were originally made...
It's been over 35 years.
Yeah, but which is kind of unfair to them because scale was never a thing with BattleTech. Yeah. It did not matter. But when you started getting miniature rules and you started getting things like Alpha Strike, all of a sudden, like, your stiletto that's as big as a damn atlas.
Yeah, the stiletto was a problem. I personally feel that the scale was at its best in that sort of 87, 88 run of miniatures. That a lot of them based off of the 3025 TRO, with it done by Charette and Guthrie and a couple of other guys. I feel that those miniatures all work really well with each other in terms of size. But yeah, when you're doing it over, 35 years, guys. I mean, what can you do? I mean, you're not gonna be perfect. I mean, you can't be. But I mean, we'll see. I am excited that Ironwind Metals. I mean, it got delayed because of the pandemic, but Ironwind Metals is going to start releasing metal versions of the miniatures that was in the Game of Warfare or Game of Armor Combat box set, which will also apparently include variants. So that I'm very much looking for.
I brought that up to Scroggins when he was posting a lot of his images. I was like, man, you guys are making all of these in CAD, and you're not gonna like actually make variants for these?
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason you shouldn't.
Yeah, and I that's one of the things that bothers me is that when Chris Lewis did all the CAD models for the resculpts of the Clan Omni-Mechs, so when it comes to Clan Omni-Mechs, I believe the Timberwolf, Warhawk, and Direwolf were all hand sculpted based off of the 3D models. I think the sculptor at the time was Drew Smith who did those.
Yeah.
All the other ones were done straight from the CAD. And there were problems with that because the Hellbringer and the Summoner had particularly large legs, and they came off looking out of scale, which is a bit unfair because it actually matched the hand-drawn illustrations, because on the back of TRO 3050 there were orthogonal views of those mechs. But after they got those kinks worked out, all of those 3050 mechs look really good. And Chris Lewis then went out of his way to do CAD models of all the variants at the time. And Scroggins and his crew ain't doing that. Which annoys me because Scroggins, to be honest, he talks shit about the previous artists. You see it all, through all his emails on the Patreon, through all his criticisms of the previous work. It's all like backhanded slaps against the previous artists. And you could definitely argue one way or the other in terms of how ridiculous or how silly something was. But I don't like it. It's kind of shitty. It's shitty.
We're gonna get into this. And...
Well, I mean, we don't have to. We don't have to. We can move on because there's other things I wanted to talk about.
Oh no, I'm fine with it. I think the one thing we should talk about is your observation about cockpits.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to do that now. If you want to try that on a
well, I think we did mention it a little bit. I think we can do a follow-up episode on the art.
Okay.
Because that's a big long one. I think we should be prepared for that one because I think it would be good to throw up images. And to be fair to Scroggins, this is work that he's in a sense being paid for by the community, and it's only released to Patreons, so we should wait until those come out in products versus just taking them off the Patreon.
Yeah.
So I'll wait. And again, he's not a bad artist, and I've talked with other BattleTech fans who dislike where it's going, and I feel as though I can make a lot of comparisons between Scroggins and Alex Kurtzman, who was managing Star Trek until he got fired. But Scroggins, he's a good artist. He's a good artist. I don't like his sensibilities. I don't like the way he approaches things. I don't like his attitude.
Sigh.
Anyway. Yeah. But we'll have to kind of plan around that. But I think to get back a little bit to painting miniatures, and this is maybe a bit of a pedantic look at things, but I know when people talk about varnishing things a lot and they do dips and stuff, I kind of wanted to clean some things up about that because I think there's a lot of confusion about it out there in the world. There's a lot of confusion out there in the woodworking world, and I know a lot of this because of woodworking. But a lot of the matte varnishes that you spray on miniatures, they're acrylic lacquers, basically. But lacquer is a form of varnish. I think we associate varnishes with polyurethane and oils. But a varnish is basically anything that provides a film finish. So, for example, linseed oil is not a varnish because it's a drying oil that penetrates into the wood. Shellac is a varnish because it provides a film finish. Lacquer is a varnish. Polyurethane and urethanes are varnishes. Traditional varnishes were often resins that are basically like tree saps that were mixed into a suspension, say like a linseed oil or turpentine, that provided a film finish. So, I mean, some of what I wanted to think about was, should I try like a spray shellac? Like Bullseye has, like Zinsser makes like the Bullseye spray shellac, provides a little bit of a yellow undertone to a miniature. So it's like wood. I thought about using that in a miniature, like that'd be cool. Or spraying like an amber shellac or something. But again, because those are alcohols, and alcohols dissolve. Those are alcohol based, and alcohols will dissolve acrylic paints. Maybe not the best idea. But I see when people talk about using dips. I think the Army Painter dips are brilliant. They're limited on their color palettes because like the sort of the brown and blackish undertones. They don't really work well on like blues and purples. They're okay for greens. They're really great for camos, especially when you got like a tan base or a brown base or a yellow base. Not so hot on whites unless you want to go for a bit of a dirty white. But those are actual varnishes. The Army Painter dips are actual varnishes. There's pigment that settles in a specific way that doesn't stay in suspension, that falls into the cracks of the miniature like a wash, but provides an actual film finish. It comes out as a gloss, but then you can dull coat it afterwards. They are not Minwax dips. Minwax stains are not varnishes. They are a sealer in that they will clog the pores and prevent penetration of stuff into the wood, but they're not varnishes. And so if you expect to grab just a can of Minwax, which honestly isn't that great of a paint stain, or of a wood stain anyway. But if you're going to buy a can of Minwax because it's cheap and expect it to perform the same way as an Army Painter dip, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You might be able to get away with it, but it's not the same. It's not the same. And it's a really, really good point of clarification because I've seen people just say that. Oh, just get a can of Minwax, it's cheaper. Well, no.
There's reasons why we have a wargaming paint market.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure a lot of the people who designed these probably tried that in the past.
Yeah. And granted, I mean, some of the guys can get away with using maybe craft store like acrylic paints if you just thin them enough. But
yeah,
I mean, I really do like Reaper. I've been really interested in trying oils. For those of you youngsters out there, when you bought like a model ship, I mean, you didn't get acrylics. You got Tester's oil paints to do things.
Yep.
The nice thing about oils is that they dry very slowly, and the colors are very, very vibrant. And the oils have improved now that you don't get the yellowing effect that you used to with a lot of paints, a lot of oil paints. There's a lot of oil paints are either linseed oil or alkyd resins, or alkyd oils. So you don't get the yellowing effect, especially on the whites that you used to. Actually, that was one of the reasons why you can still find lead-based paint for artist paints in oils, because lead white is so brilliant, but it does gray over time, so you're better off getting like I think it's a titanium white is I think the pigment now. But yeah, oils can be very brilliant, but acrylics are kind of the way to go because they're so easy to clean up.
Especially for someone like me.
Yeah. Well, if you lick your paintbrush like I do,
yeah,
bad shit, man. Bad stuff's gonna happen. But yeah, sorry, was that a bit rambling? Yeah, varnishes are resins dissolved in something that provide a film finish, and I wanted to sort of clarify that because I think a lot of people don't really follow up on that.
And I'm just here like, Dips. I
Dips.
think I need to try one of those.
Yeah.
I actually saw someone. It was a real clever. I've been meaning to try it. Like maybe just get like army painter dips.
Yeah.
But I saw somebody who made an attachment for his like 18-volt handheld drill. So like he'll actually dip it and he'll put his miniature on like the end of the bit that he made that like he clamps it into place.
And he can
just stands and just revs his drill and all of the stuff he dipped just like flies off of it.
see. You gotta be really careful, man.
Yeah, I know.
I'll tell you why. So one of the first times I was painting a rifleman. It's the first rifleman I really put a lot of effort into. One of the first miniatures I did was a rifleman. Of course, this was when they were no longer in production. And I went to go shake it out, and it came flying out of my hand and buried itself in the grass. Thankfully, it was lead, so everything bent back relatively easily without breaking.
Yeah, I think I remember in that post, he kind of had the same experience. Because the clamp wasn't tight enough for it, so it just kind of like spun and flew off.
Yeah, you're like, oh man, like I'm not gonna find that again, am I?
I don't know if there's an actual official product that was made for that. I'm gonna have to check into that. If not, that dude needs to patent it.
Yeah. Well, I think chemistry is really important too. I think that's one of the things to talk about because now we're kind of on a bit of a painting kick. When it comes to stripping paints. You got to be careful what you use, and I think one of the things I want to caution people about is it depends on what type of pewter was used by Iron Wind, because if the pewter mixture was particularly high in aluminum or aluminium if you're from the UK, you've got to be super careful what you use and how you do it. And the reason why is that simple green can cause pitting in it, or it can at least discolor the aluminum.
See, thankfully for me, I don't have a lot of those from that lead era.
Yeah. the other thing is, I know people talked about using ultrasonic cleaning devices like the scalers.
Yeah, it's kind of pain in the ass though.
And one to get a good one, they're expensive. I know, because I looked into a new one for the clinic, and it ain't cheap.
We have to use them at work when we clean time locks.
Yeah. Like, it'll get the stuff off, no problem. But one of the ways that you tell if your ultrasonic scaler is working well is to put a piece of aluminum foil in it and see does it what it does to aluminum foil. And again, if you have a miniature from Iron Wind that has a particularly high aluminum content, you're going to cause really bad pitting in your miniature. And it's going to suck. You're going to be angry at yourself. I know. Because I fucking did it.
All the newbies, please pay attention to this.
I think the other thing too is if you have access to good ventilation, again, it might be an 18 or over product too, but I like brush cleaner for cleaning metal miniatures because it really removes the paint super easily. Acetone will work. Acetone's really great, dissolving glue. Simple green will work. If you're in the UK, Dettol soap will work. I think in some instances, denatured alcohol will work.
Yeah.
But brush cleaner, for me, is the easiest. Now, it's super harsh. It has a lot of chemicals in it, so you want to use it, someplace well ventilated. But if you got a solvent-resistant jar, or that steel, whether it's glass, you can leave them in there for like an hour or two, and you'll pull them out, and the paint will come off super easily. It makes things a real breeze. You may still have to get like a toothpick or like a dental pick to get out the grooves.
Do a toothbrush too.
Yeah, like a nylon toothbrush. But yeah, the paint will come off very, very easily. It will destroy plastic though. So that's where like Simple Green comes in, is when you've got plastic miniatures, because it'll do that safely. I think the other thing to watch out for is a lot of... So for example, I have the Model Air brand of airbrush primer, which is great, but a lot of spray primers as well. They are going to be a urethane-based primer, and urethanes are real tough to get off. They really adhere to the miniature, which is great. It's what you want. But that kind of explains why sometimes primers can be a real bear to get off of a miniature, because they might be urethane-based. Chemistry, man.
Well, that's why I failed chemistry.
Yeah. So yeah. You can. if you got the miniature was on an oil, acetone should work pretty well.
Yeah, acetone's pretty solid.
'Cause
I had a couple that I bought online, in particular, a Phoenix Hawk.
Yeah.
It had some real gunked up enamel on it.
Because there's still a lot of miniatures out there from eBay, and it's probably going to be for a while too of people who came into a collection because a relative died or a friend died or they found it, or they're getting out of they just want to sell it off because it's been sitting in a closet for 20 years. But they bought the miniatures in the 80s and early 90s when everyone was still using oils to paint their miniatures, and they're showing up online, and they're selling them, and they're gonna be covered in thick layers of oil paint.
You don't need to go out of your way to pay a crap ton of money on Amazon too. Just, if I could recommend, if you want to get more miniatures, just join on Facebook in the BattleTech trade and sell.
Yeah.
You get some people who have a ton of them laying around, and like the Phoenix Hawk I got, I mean, they're not going to give it to you for like a couple bucks. I mean, that's like old school lead, Raul Partha era. I mean, having to pay like even $15 to like $20 for like one of them is a steal. And on eBay you can do that, but if you actually get involved with the BattleTech community, you got some really good fans that, like us, we like to spread the love for the game.
I think when the Kickstarter miniatures, like the Marauders and the Phoenix Hawks and all those, become more available or become available individually a la carte from Iron Wind, I think those really expensive unseen miniatures, you're going to see precipitous price drops from them. It's going to happen because the demand's not there.
It'll probably bother a few people.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, it won't bother me.
I mean, I look at it the same way as sort of like the saxophone market, like the vintage saxophone market, because you'll see some asshole put up, a Bisher True Tone alto or tenor and expect to get like $1,000 to $2,000 for it. Like, I get it's silver plate, but these horns were made in the 1920s during the saxophone craze. There's like hundreds of thousands of these things kicking around in various states of repair, whether or not it's lacquered gold plate or silver plate. No one is going to get $2,000 for this stuff. Even like legendary horns. I saw one dude on eBay, and granted, it looked beautiful. But it was a Selmer Mark 6, like the legendary horn. I'm doing air quotes right now. The legendary, Selmer Mark 6 alto saxophone in silver plate with all the trimmings. Even stuff that is custom order, no longer put on saxophones, with a low A, high F sharp, G sharp trill, E flat trill, out the wazoo. Dude wanted $13,000 for it. And I'm like, dude, you're not getting $13,000 for it, because I can tell you exactly where to get a silver plate or gold plate Selmer Mark 6 alto saxophone.
It's like
in Lockport right now for $4,000.
Yeah,
I know where it is. I've thought about it. I don't need it, but I know where it is, and it's not moving because no one's buying these saxophones anymore. So you can't demand these prices, and so, in a year or two, no one's gonna be demanding $75 or $100 for an unseen Marauder.
Well, I've seen another good example of that too is the classic video game market. A lot of people really like to mark up Atari 2600 games, especially like thrift stores. Like even something like there are some harder ones to find, like Mario Brothers. Or Joust is another one that's really good, but you could find this stuff even at places like half price books, and they mark up like they'll charge like $20 for like one of them. But you can go in a Facebook group and you can find one in like decent condition, maybe for like $5 from somebody. And that's why I bring up BattleTech Trade and Sell, because you got, that's pretty much how they are, and they'll even give you advice on, like, if you want, let's say you're like you said, like you inherit a collection and the guy just happened to have like the Succession Wars box. They'll give you an honest opinion on what you can get for it. It's not going to be like eBay where someone has it for like $600, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
unless I guess it was sealed and like autographed by every original creator.
Yeah.
You know, then I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and there are definitely exceptions to the rule, right? Like, there are definitely exceptions, and if you bought something that was still shrink wrapped,
I mean,
yeah, great.
shit. I've been guilty. I mean, man, I had a trip I did for work, like in Northern Illinois, and I just stumbled into a Half Price Books, and my God, somebody had to dump their BattleTech collection there, and it had like every single, like they were even like they had the House Liao, like old school black book.
Yeah.
Like, just to give you an idea, I sent you pictures of all of this before, and I was in like
Yeah.
a crisis. I was like, oh my God, do I buy all of this? I ended up dropping like, no, it sounds like a lot, but like around $500. But when I was looking at the pricing, they're not very good at it. They'll put like one book, it's ridiculous, where it's like $100. Thankfully, none of them were that.
Yeah.
I could not fathom doing that. But I averaged it out, and it would ended up being like $15 to $20 a book, which was still a little high with the condition of some of them, but it was the amount of money I probably would have paid over time, even if you think of like shipping fees off of eBay,
Yeah.
stuff like that, where I just bit the bullet and did it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And we've used a couple of them, you know?
Oh yeah.
I've
Yeah.
read through some of them and used them for various little projects I've had, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But, I mean, I mean, the kind of collector I am, I just like to have it, you know?
Right. Well, at this point too, I mean, we've been playing this game, so long ourselves, and I've definitely bought multiples of books that I forgot I even had. Like, why not? It was cheap. Let's just do it. And the one thing that I'm really happy about is I got like almost like a mint condition TRO 3025, which was the first BattleTech book that I had after the box set, and then I got a still wrapped BattleTech 3rd edition. I paid a lot of money for that, but it was okay because that means a lot to me, and it's going to stay shrink wrapped. I got no intention of really opening it. The truth is, those sort of vinyl plastic miniatures that came with the 3rd edition box set they're not good.
Mm-hmm.
They're not good because what
We've come a long way.
Yeah, I got 2 copies because that 3rd edition was the first time that the box set actually included miniatures, and those were based off of the Iron Wind miniatures, or at the time Ralph Partha miniatures. Mm-hmm. But man, there's so many defects, and in fact, what they had done is it was really neat at the time because they had the 3rd edition box set, and then very quickly afterwards they released a reinforcements box set, which was just the miniatures from the 3rd edition. Oh yeah, man. Oh, they're horrible. It's like someone like held up a lighter to some of them. I mean, they're just not good quality.
Great for Cheeto fingers, though.
Great for Cheeto fingers. But yeah, and like the removing the mold lines. Oh, it's a nightmare. Some people out there are really, really talented with green stuff and putty. They make them look gorgeous.
Yeah.
There's some of the people out there are really way more talented than I am, or probably will ever be. But I just don't know if they're worth it. But to me, they mean a lot because it was my first. And so I'm never going to sell my student, Yamaha alto saxophone from when I was in 4th grade. It's my first fucking saxophone. I'm never going to sell that. No way. I mean, I'm not as good as I used to be, and I don't play as much as I wish I did. But I still pick up the horn. I still like playing it. I've got a. When I was in high school, my dad finally acquiesced to my beggings for a professional saxophone. I'd like to think that if he bought it for me earlier, I would have taken it all more seriously, but I mean, probably not. But
Teenage years, man.
But yeah, I got a Kyleworth saxophone from 2000. It was their 75th edition, and it's just a beast of a horn. So it's just
My parents got me the Fender Jag Stang, the Kurt Cobain guitar, because I was just getting into Nirvana. That's what I actually learned how to play guitar through that. I actually looked at it recently, and I tried picking it up. Man, I suck now.
yeah. If you don't use it, man, you lose it. Yeah. Well, and that kind of gets to an earlier point I made. You have to get good. And I know when you suck at the time, you hate hearing it. When you're new, you hate hearing it. You hate it. I hated hearing it. But you've got to put the time in. You can't. I mean, there are definitely things that like cool tricks you can learn to get to make your paint jobs look better on your miniature. To work a way around a tune. To learn how to play the game.
It's one of those things.
Remember when you played chess, right? You learned the Blitzkrieg move.
Oh yeah,
You felt awesome because you beat your opponent in 3 moves.
3-4 move checkmate. I did it shamelessly when I was teaching my daughter how to play chess. I did it to her.
But then you play against someone who's marginally better than you, and your whole strategy falls apart, and you have no action, you have no game plan past move 4 or 5.
But I really didn't do it to be an asshole to her. I did it to teach it to her. I was like, it's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And she actually beat a couple of the kids in school with it who thought they were hot shit.
Yeah. But like you have to get good. The fighting game, you're getting wrecked all the time. You have to learn how to uppercut. You want to get good at painting a miniature. Because you can't just pick up one of those MechWare Online 3D printed miniatures or one of the new ones, and just because it's a quote-unquote better miniature, you're going to make it look good. No, you still suck. You used too much paint. Your primer is awful. You didn't highlight anything. You didn't put any details. You went for red out of the gate. You tried to paint white out of the gate, and you suck at it. You have to get good. I know, because I sucked at painting red and I sucked at painting white. You know? You can't play your instrument in tune. Yeah, you gotta sit there and you gotta practice long tones of the tuner. You gotta sit there for 20 minutes, playing 5 notes, trying to play it in tune. You gotta get good. It sucks. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. And even when you get better at painting a miniature, you're still gonna mess it up, and you're still gonna throw it in the stripping pot. I know, because I've done it.
Yeah. You know, I mean, for someone like me, it doesn't really bother me as much.
Yeah.
You
well,
know,
it's the age of wisdom comes with age.
Yeah. Wisdom isn't one of my high points either.
Yeah. Well, like woodworking, man. You know, there are more projects that I've pitched or thrown in the fireplace than I've completed.
Man.
You know, it is what it is. It is what it is. You know, you just hope it's not expensive wood. But you fuck it up.
You know, when I redid my basement, I didn't know anything about doing that. You know, patching up. Like I have a cinder block foundation. Whoever worked on it before did not care. So I had a problem with water in my basement. I mean, to the point of I'm running downspouts next to my damn house. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And I took down cabinets they hung on the wall, and there was like an inch crack behind it.
Yeah.
I did some research. It might not have been the best job, but I did it. And I learned from it. You know, I had to not necessarily get good, but the practice of doing it essentially made me better because it broadened my comfort zone and it basically made me more handy.
Yeah.
You know, because I was willing to take more of a risk. And it's in line with painting too, because my skills aren't professional by far, but it comes down to what you're comfortable with doing and what your end goal is.
Yeah.
You know, I go for quick and dirty and presentable, you know.
Yeah, well, you gotta learn where you can cut corners, where you can do things fast. And you gotta learn how to hide your mistakes too and cover them up.
Yeah, and you know, I go with whatever I think looks cool. You know, I got spikes on one of my units that I've used toothpicks, like ends of toothpicks. I've used the end of comb bristles, you know, just to do it. You know, sometimes you get that one guy who's like, oh, why would you use a toothpick? It looks out of, like, character, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, because I thought it looked cool.
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've used my wife's nail polish for some things.
Yeah.
Like, if I didn't have a color, like, she has a ton of freaking nail polish. I went up. I still have the bottle in my drawer. She never asked for it back. And just whatever, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And I've taken the same miniatures I've experimented with doing that and just redone them. You're way more passionate about it than I am.
Yeah, I've got a miniature sitting on my desk right now that I haven't touched in a month. I got the base coat down. I just been so busy with work and just other stuff. I really should get around back to it, but yeah, I mean, at some point I might mess it up in such a way that I just decide to just pitch it and strip it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was us around. Actually, we went on for quite a while there, just on miniatures. Hour 5. I think we're gonna call it.
Yeah.
Well, you guys take care. Continue to stay safe. Wash your hands. Wear your masks.
Yeah, please. I hope to be awake for the next episode.
Yeah.
Hopefully, this weekend was brutal, man.
Yeah. Well, hey, yeah, like I said, again, guys, take care, stay safe, and we will see you in the next episode. Hopefully, in a couple weeks.
Awesome.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.